Professional wrestlers put their lives in their own hands and the hands of their opponents every time they step into the squared circle. Injuries can happen at any time and, in fact, often come about due to something that looks totally innocuous. Sometimes a move goes so badly that nothing but total and utter catastrophe seems to be the only logical outcome, and yet somehow these spandex-clad warriors live to fight another day. I'm Adam Pacitti from Cultaholic Wrestling, and these are 10 wrestling botches that could have been much worse. Join us! Number 10, a giant clanger. Paul White used to be quite the specimen back in his prime. Capable of performing dropkicks, nip-ups, and legend has it, a moonsault, White was also a lot lighter during his WCW days as the Giant. And that's no doubt why Kevin Nash believed that he could pick up the 7-footer for a jackknife powerbomb when the two met at the sold-out 1998 pay-per-view. Well, actually, that's not exactly true. As Nash tells it, he had tried to convince White and everyone else to abandon the spot because he didn't believe that he could get him up all the way. He had done it successfully almost a year beforehand at Super Brawl 97, but the Giant had discovered the supersized menu and tacked on a few pounds in the interim. Unfortunately, Big Sexy's instincts were right as the move didn't come off at sold out and White ended up falling right on the back of his head. Just a mild concussion for the future Big Show, though he did stay out of the ring for a while to sell a kayfabe injury and build to a rematch with Nash. Number 9, derailing the A-Train. Brock Lesnar is a very scary, very strong individual. This should not come as a shock to anyone at this point, we've known it for a while. The next big thing displayed his freakish power regularly during his rookie year, throwing about super heavyweights like The Big Show, Rikishi, and Mark Henry at will. Another beef boy that Brock had no issues manhandling was A-Train. When Lesnar and the man formerly known as Albert collided at a SmackDown taping on January 7th, 2003, however, the ease with which Brock threw his opponent around almost had dire consequences. When Lesnar went to give A-Train a second F5 after their match, something went wrong, and the big bald man with the hairy back took a header onto that dome of his. The move was edited off the broadcast, but WWE opted to air it months later when Cena began feuding with the then WWE Champion, which is how Cena came up with his new FU finisher. What looked like a career-ending neckbreaker ended up just shaking A-Train up a little, despite fears backstage that he may have been seriously hurt. Far as I can tell, the tough bastard only missed a single house show before getting back on the road. Number 8, no mercy for the rabid Wolverine. Matt Bloom's neck could have realistically still been giving him grief by the time he met Chris Benoit in a singles match at No Mercy 10 months after the errant F5, and it would have been totally understandable. The Canadian crippler himself knew all about neck issues, of course, having been forced to miss a year of action between 2001 and 2002 after undergoing fusion surgery. More than a year after making his return, Benoit's ring work showed pretty much no signs of being affected due to the operation, as he basically did everything he did before, flying headbutts and all. He would have been thanking his lucky stars that his neck was surgically repaired when taking on A-Train at No Mercy due to a spot that went very, very wrong. Towards the end of the bout, Train picked Benoit up for a press slam when I guess a combination of baby oil and man sweat caused the rabid Wolverine to slip down his foe's back, resulting in an ugly angled landing. Not just on the mat, mind, neck first onto a steel chair, thank you very much. Incredibly, the toll was just a busted mouth and he was back in the ring the very next night. Number 7, neck strong. After suffering 2 consecutive kayfabe neck injuries in the summer of 2023, AEW star Roderick Strong spent a couple of months on the sidelines wearing a brace and moping about his predicament. He was certainly committed to the bit, and his promos and backstage segments got him more over with the AEW audience. Proclaiming himself to be neck strong, the Messiah of the Backbreaker returned more popular than ever before. In a brutal example of how irony makes a mockery of us all, Strong almost legitimately broke his neck in just his second match back. Wrestling against Action Andretti on an episode of Rampage, Roderick went to take a Spanish fly while running at his opponent when everything went haywire. The upshot was he landed right on the side of his face. AEW referees have justifiably received a bit of stick for their poor judgment in the past, but Stephon Smith deserves a world of credit for ignoring the pinfall attempt in order to check on the well-being of the performer. He was mercifully okay and managed to finish the match. Hey, you can't keep a strong neck down. Number 6. Neck Strong the prequel, Neck Stronger. The December 6, 2004 episode of WWE Raw was a significant occasion for the promotion's fighting females. For the first time in the flagship show's history, two women were going to close things out in a singles match where they were the primary focus. All the ingredients for a classic were there as Trish Stratus defended her women's championship against perennial rival Lita in a grudge match months in the making. And it was a brilliant contest, capped off when Lita hit a moonsault to bag the gold. That said, how the flame-haired daredevil was able to even finish the match is something of a medical marvel, as it very much looked like she came close to breaking her neck again just moments into it. With Trish on the outside, Lita took off and jumped through the ropes with a suicide dive. Landing with a sickening thud, she absorbed the impact of the blow on her chest while her legs went over her head in a sort of scorpion shape, her feet millimeters from touching the floor. It is truly amazing that Lita walked away from this unscathed, yet during a rematch a month later, she completely wrecked her knee performing a comparatively routine Fez press. Number 5. The King of Wrong Style. As WWE's golden goose for, what are we, coming up to 2 decades now, John Cena is an asset that has been heavily protected in more ways than one. In a very literal sense, Big Match John has worked a relatively safe style and doesn't take too many risks that aren't calculated to ensure his safety. While wrestling Shinsuke Nakamura in something of a dream match on the August 1st, 2017 edition of SmackDown, Cena went up for what he presumed was a regular back suplex. Instead, Nakamura was going for something akin to a reverse exploder, where the person taking it would usually rotate and do almost like a backflip and land on their belly. This communication resulted in Cena landing directly on his head and neck. It was a very scary moment, but luckily the 16-time world champion was fine. Shinsuke could actually be seen apologizing to Cena after his victory, to which the face that runs the place replied, "Don't be sorry." Cena may have been calm after the near miss, but Vince McMahon was reportedly raging backstage after, and it took Cena taking the heat off Nakamura for the chairman's nerves to properly settle down. Number 4. The Fall of Jericho. One of the most remarkable things about the remarkable career of Chris Jericho is how the man simply never seems to get injured. I mean, seriously, since making his debut way back in 1990, Y2J hasn't really missed any lengthy period of time due to torn muscles or broken bones. Any in-ring misfortune that has come Jericho's way has been something he can work through. At WCW Halloween Havoc 1997, however, his career came within inches of coming to an abrupt end. Taking on Gedo, a man he was familiar with from frequent tours in Japan in the night's second match, the former Cruiserweight champion went to hit a Frankensteiner with both men standing on the top rope. Regrettably, they seemed to simultaneously lose their balance and badly bungled on the move. Had Jericho not rotated so that he took the brunt on his face rather than the top of his head, he could well have ended up breaking his neck or worse. In his first autobiography, Jericho noted that he's never watched the match back due to this botch, and honestly, I can say that I don't blame him. Number 3, a WrestleMania moment to forget. Brock Lesnar and Kurt Angle must have felt as though their WrestleMania 19 main event was cursed. A month prior to the first-time bout, the WWE champion re-broke his neck, putting the whole thing in jeopardy. Kurt decided to gut it out anyway, knowing the whole time that one errant bump could leave him unable to walk. The Olympic gold medalist came out of it no more the worse for wear, besides, the already existing broken neck, while Lesnar almost broke his own neck while attempting a spectacular shooting star press. Brock had done the move untold times in developmental and during non-televised dark matches prior to his main roster call-up, but something was off when he tried it on the grandest stage of them all, and his near 300-pound frame splatted face first into the mat. As Angle recalls things, he assumed his opponent had to be dead, such was the force with which he crashed and burned. Somehow, Lesnar was unharmed, save for a concussion, and he managed to finish the match and win the gold as planned. Understandably, he never tried the move, which he was pressured into doing as it would be a great WrestleMania moment ever again. Number 2, a madcap mess. Elimination Chamber 2022 was the biggest night in the career of Madcap Moss. Matched up against Drew McIntyre in a major Falls Count Anywhere bout, Moss was given about 10 minutes to show the world what he could do. Unfortunately for Moss, what the world saw him do was almost break his neck. Over-rotating on a reverse Alabama slam, Madcap landed at a sickening angle, spiking himself into the mat. The concern was apparent on the faces of Drew, referee Jessica Carr, and Happy Corbin at ringside, but Moss was quick to let all involved know that he was fine and able to continue. How that was possible, I will never know. Moss was also, by all appearances, fine when he got backstage, where he was evaluated by WWE's medical staff. The Minnesota native also apologized to Vince McMahon, McIntyre, and the producers who helped put the match together for the heart-in-mouth moment, assuring them it was a one-off. It should be noted that there was no heat on the Scottish Warrior, who is universally considered a safe and experienced worker. Number 1, almost killing the dead man. A Monday Night War dream match that came about 20 years too late, The Undertaker vs. Goldberg at Super Showdown 2019 was a complete disaster on just about every level and quickly turned into a living nightmare. Goldberg was knocked loopy early on after missing a spear and colliding with the ring post, throwing him off for the rest of a match that gave new meaning to the term train wreck. The old meaning was raucous R-rated motion picture starring John Cena, of course. The match probably should have been called off when Demand bashed that big metal pole, but the two warhorses just carried on. And you know what? It almost ended up costing the dead man dearly. Goldberg, who probably didn't know whether he was in Savannah, Georgia or Saudi Arabia at this point, picked Taker up for his jackhammer finisher, lost his balance, and dropped the Phenom on his head, neck, and shoulders. Mark Calloway was mightily miffed at the mishap, but astonishingly was not severely injured by it, despite his back feeling jacked up after. He escaped permanent injury, but the incident did force him to assess whether it was time to hang up his boots, a decision he ended up making less than a year later.